beginning of the 21st century, maybe it is something very natural and very boring to vote. To go and to vote, to give our voice to one or another political party. We're supposed to defend some political values, how to build our societies, how to organize our public affairs and our life together. But I would like to remember you that in the beginning of the 19th century, in the beginning of the 20th century, there was people, many men and women are fighting to make it possible to vote. They are fight and they died for this right. Because I don't know if you know, there is one of the biggest philosopher of the 20th century, Hannah Arendt. She is woman, she is Jewish, and she is a very clever woman. And she said something very interesting. She said that human being is a person, someone who have the right to have rights. Okay. So we will continue with this topic. I would like just tell you two things. The first is I would like to tell you a story related to my youth. And I will finish with a little presentation of European Citizen Initiative. It is a new kind of tool of empowerment of citizens in European Union. Maybe we will, in the end of my presentation, we will know why I decided to tell you this story, and why I decided to. I think that to make obligatory the voting, it is not possible, it is not good, and I will tell you why. When I was 18, it was in the end of the 80s, it was the socialist period. Many of you maybe, well, I don't know, were born in this moment, I don't know. Yes, but I was 18 years, and it was my first time to vote. The first time that I had the possibility to vote, to express my, my political opinion. But it was not possible, because in this period we had only one person, there is no choice. But we were obliged to go and to vote. And I was sitting in my room, I remember this story because I was sitting in my room and not listening, but watching in the television. There was Olympic Games. Olympic Games. And I adore some winter sports. And I was watching them, and my father appears in the door, and he told me, Radosveta, you have to go. Where I have to go? You have to go to vote. And why I have to vote? Because it is supposed to do it. You are supposed to go and to vote. And I asked him why I have to go to vote, because it is already it decided. There is only one person, was the candidate for the post of mayor of our village. I'm born in a little village nearby the capital. And they told me, my father told me, they are waiting for you. They're all the committee, the mayor was always elected. They're waiting for you, only you did not vote. Only you. You are the only person, and the village is waiting for you to vote. I tell you about it because I think that it was the moment that I understand what is the choice, how important it is to have the right to make choices, because it is not a freedom, it is not really freedom. The freedom, it is something that supposes rights, obligations, and freedom. The right is, in the socialist period, we had also no obligations. We had not rights. Nowadays, young people, they have many rights, but few responsibilities. And the liberty, the freedom is a combination between right and responsibility. And I'll finish with this really very important initiative of the European Union to launch the so-called European Citizen Initiative. I don't know if you know something about it. Did you heard about it? It is a brand new initiative. It was been launched in 2009 by the European Commission according to the new Lisbon Treaty, and it gives to every European citizen the possibility to make a legislation, to propose a new law on the European level. You have three conditions: to make a committee, initiative committee, for at least seven states members of the European Union, and this committee must take 1 billion signatures, make a petition and take 1 billion signatures for. There is another condition that these signatures they have been.
1 million.
1 billion, yes.
1 million.
1 million, yes.
Billion.
Oh, excuse me. 1 million. And after that, we had the possibility to make the proposition about whatever you want, but there is some clauses that there is some restrictions, however, that's related with the European treaties. I remember one of the most maybe successful initiatives was one initiative launched in last year. It was about the so-called ecocide. I don't know if you know something about it. The ecocide. The idea is that when we have some kind of very big pollution, for example, of Danube River, a very big ecological catastrophe, ecological problem, it gives the possibility to make a law, and according to this law, this pollution or this catastrophe could be incriminated as crime against humanity, as some kind of ecocide. Ecocide is like a genocide. It is crime against, not only against vegetation, against plants, against ecosystems, but against that's something very political, but it is crime against every citizens of the European Union, every nation state and every national citizen and every citizen of the European Union. It is a really very powerful instrument for citizen empowerment, I think, but maybe few of you know something about it, because there are so many restrictions related with this is a process, very long, a very difficult process, and you have to have some competencies, civic competencies, because without some kind of civic culture, it is impossible to realize that. But you have, it gives you the possibility to make the so-called bottom-up democracy, grassroots democracy, the real democracy. It is not a direct democracy, but the combination between the representative, the delegative democracy, that is in fact the European elections, and the grassroots bottom-up democracy is maybe the best combination of these both instruments. And I would like to ask you to think about it during our seminar, during the end of our seminar. 3 questions. The first question is, it's my questions. Do you think that this citizen initiative is really a very important instrument for citizen empowerment? What's the weak points and strong points of this initiative? What's the weak points and the strong points of the European elections as an instrument of citizen empowerment? And the last one, European projects, because Dancetu told you about some problems related with the implementation of European projects here in Chiprovtsi. It must be, and it is some kind of really very good instrument for citizen empowerment. You know that European projects give you the possibility to make something with European funds, to build something, to work together, to make something for your local community. But sometimes the situation is really not very good. We have stadium there, a stadium, but we have only 2,000 people living in Chiprovtsi who will use this stadium. It is not. It was an excellent project according to all European standards, but it is really useful for local community. It is really an instrument for citizen empowerment. Excuse me, and it was my point of view, and after that I give the word of my colleague Stoil TSITSELKOV from Bulgaria, from the European Association for Defense of Human Rights.
And also from Shtastlivetsa.
And also from Shtastlivetsa.
Sorry, if you haven't told this already to everyone, just remember that you're divided in groups and make sure you write down the things related to your topics. Because afterwards we'll be, presenting stuff related to what you were supposed to watch for in the lectures. So that's all I have to say.
Oh well, if you allow me, I'll be sitting because I'm tired. Too much rakia.
Never too much.
Yes. But we still have a few more days to go, so
and more
I'm trying to preserve myself. Well, we're here to speak today. I'm here to present you the topic of the European elections, of the elections for the European Parliament. I'm sure most of you know, so I'm not gonna waste too much of your time speaking on things that you know, or if you don't, please come after that and ask me what the hell are these European elections about. If you have no idea, it's okay. I have the time and the energy to explain you, because I believe this is an extremely important thing for everyone to know. So if some of you have skipped that, please come. But now I will really try to get further in. First, just for a little introduction, I will tell you just general about the elections. The elections in general. The reason we have elections is because we still haven't found, as a civilization, if you like, a better way to empower someone and to have like a champion of the people. That was the idea of democracy. The idea was what Radosveta just said. It's about the bottom up, the grassroots democracy. It's when people gather together and they elect their champion, a person who they believe would fight for their interest, and they send him to do that full time as a job. That's the idea of politicians. And in the old days, a politician was never just a politician. He was a musician, he was a painter, he was, if you like, a laborer. But he would be a champion of his union. That's how unions were created in the UK during the Industrial Revolution. That's how most politics were done after the monarchical period. That's what we believe democracy is. But democracy is not perfect. And democracy is when two wolves and one sheep vote what do we have for dinner. And this is democracy, and it's fair in the democratic world. So I think you all gather that we're gonna have lamb for dinner. And this is fair. And there are no perfect way to make elections, as we are all very different, and I'm an anthropologist by education, and I also work as a legal analyst for the European Commission on the topic of elections specifically. I get sent all over the world to look if the elections there are made in a good way, if all democratic principles are followed, and there is a very simple way to check if this really happened. So this is what I'm gonna speak about. It's something I really understand, it's something I think it's interesting, and I think as citizens you should know how to really measure good elections, what makes good elections, and yes, and what are the criteria that we follow in order to say yes, the person elected here is really what should have been done. Because as I said, if we have two wolves and one sheep, and they decide three of them vote what do we have for dinner, this is fair to us. So again, I underline, it's not perfect, at least not for the ship. But it's what democracy is all about. And as I said, there are no perfect elections. Electoral systems are very different in the world. I'm not going to waste your time again on that. I know my lessons, and if some of you is interested, come to me and I'll tell you about the mixed system, the majority system, the English system, where if you have like one party has 33%, 32%, another has 32.5%, and another has 33%, the one with 33 wins. So you have the case of a very large part of the society not being presented, and only one candidate goes in. That happens in Britain, but they have a very stable government, very stable society, so this does not cause problems there. In other countries this would be impossible, because the two that are out of the office with the 60%, they would make alliance and kick out, have rebellion or coup d'etat, or so depends on the society, depends on the development, on traditions. If you like, religion plays very strong role in different societies. There are different electoral systems, but we somehow in the European Commission managed to measure them all in the same margin, which is very important. Even though they're very different, they're done in different countries. In Africa, they vote with a colorful little balls. I think it was in it was not in Bissau. Could be in Mali, it doesn't matter. In some countries, people are from so different backgrounds, language backgrounds and cultural, it would have so long to translate all the ballot papers, the name of the parties to all the different local languages, that they just decide, we vote for the Greens, you vote with the green ball, then we counted the green balls. In the end of the day, we found out who won. Quite simple. There are more complicated ways, way more complicated ways. I'm now part of the commission working on the new electoral code in the Bulgarian parliament. And one of the suggestions was about the ballot with all the names of all the candidates that you can select from. It was like 3.5 meters printed the paper, individual. 3.5 meters. I did my university. I consider myself a smart person. I couldn't get myself around this ballot paper. And I imagine my grandmother looking like, oh my god, you know, she would just probably put cross somewhere and go back to watch Turkish soap operas or whatever she watches, you know. So there are different types of elections, very simple and very complicated. But here I wrote very briefly for you, there are 12 criteria that I'm trained, and I train other people how to check elections. Yeah, you can write them down if you're interested. They're quite interesting. I'm sharing something from the kitchen that is actually available online if you're interested, but I will really give you the short. So the first is political context. This is what I look when I'm sent in a new country. I have been sent to Nicaragua, to East Timor. I observe elections in Denmark. I've done that in post-war, post-conflict countries, in the ex-Yugoslavia. Yeah, if you have time. And I have a story about the Chiprovtsi stadium from Brussels. The Chiprovtsi stadium is already famous in Brussels. I was at the Brussels airport and I overheard people speaking about the Chiprovtsi stadium, how projects are not really working. It's famous. In Belgium, people discuss that. They know about a very small town with a huge stadium that they don't need. And they know that there is no violation of the norms. So they realize, okay, maybe the norms does not fit for all. But I'll get back on the elections. So, the political context, and just very briefly, because we don't have much time, the political context, well, it speaks about how well developed the political system in a country is. Is it Marxist-Leninist, as is the case in Nepal, for example? Is it a very well developed democracy like the case in France? Is it a very old democracy but not well developed, as is the case in Greece?
Yes. So old that
they lost the point. They lost the point. It's a joke. I actually respect the Greek democracy a lot, because people there get on the streets and fight for their rights, and this is what democracy is all about. Because the reason I mentioned I'm in the Bulgarian parliament working on the new electoral code is not because I'm super smart or very good looking. It's because there are thousands of people shouting on the street, we want change. Thousands of people were shouting, and I went there as their representative. I got elected as one of the people shouting, and I actually have my certificates and all the things that I actually graduated that I'm actually specialist in the field of elections, and this is how I got in. I was specialist in the field of elections before that, but no one invited me. I needed people to go and say, we want change for myself to be invited inside. I was a specialist before that too. I was sending all my analysis to all our famous politicians. I don't want to mention their name, I don't want to...
Maybe for our guests, only to mention that last year there was a very big demonstration, not only street demonstration, but a very big protest in Bulgaria against the new elected government, and not also against the new elected government, but against the political system, against the social system, against this system of the transition, the so-called system of the transition, and the so-called democracy of facade democracy.
Facade democracy.
Excuse me.
Very
Because they are not,
yeah, perhaps you might miss the almost riots we had in
something
Bulgaria.
about it, about the Bulgarian political context, because we're speaking about the political context in Bulgaria.
Oh, we're speaking now in general,
okay.
in Europe. I'm just giving an example how protests from the streets actually make changes in politics and how they bring people to the parliament who are not elected by voting. I'm not a politician by any means, but I'm there speaking with the politicians, and when there are people shouting outside, they have to listen. And it was physically the case. I was inside the room and people were shouting outside like they were screaming, we want something to happen. So when I'm inside speaking, they're listening to me. When there is no protest, they're like, yeah, okay, we heard that. They throw it in the round folder, the bin, and it disappears. So the political context speaks about how our elections, speaking about elections, in the field of elections, how elections are constituted. Who decides when the elections are made? All this we take in consideration, and we write our analysis and reports. I'm not going to dig into that, but it's pretty much about basic civil rights. Are you well informed? Do you know there are elections? Did you hear there are European elections this Sunday? Do you know who you're going to vote? This is the political context, the general understanding, the readiness of society to have elections. Say in times of war, obviously, elections are not a good idea, or like the case now in Ukraine. In times of such strong political pressure, we're not sure if the referendums are really free, they really express the will of everyone, if everyone feels free to go and vote. Then we have the legal framework, and this is where I come, this is what I usually observe. It's very simple actually. The legal framework is very simple. We look at the provide for good elections. Do you have a good electoral code? Like in Bulgaria we don't. Do you follow international norms? Because as you know, the international norms, the UN Convention of Civil Economic Rights is much higher than the local. So even if the country ratified it, signed it and ratified it, of course. So this is what we look. This is very simple. We look how elections are done, what have been physically done, and what the preparations are, and we look what it's written in the papers. Very simple job for me. And the third point is the election administration, which is extremely complicated. I have done work on that too, but I'm glad it's not my field. In Bulgaria it's quite complicated, in other countries it's less complicated, but let's say that there is always agency that is in charge with constituting and going through the whole process of elections, starting with printing ballots, information campaigns. In Bulgaria it's called the Central Electoral Committee, and there is a Regional Electoral Committee, and then you have a Sectoral Election Committee, which are the lovely people you meet in a little schoolroom like this one where you cast your vote. Basically, what do we observe about that? If the society really accepts and understands the work. It's the public's attitude toward this. This is what we are really interested when we observe. As I mentioned, the electoral administration are in charge with the information, so for us to understand if they do their job very well is to find out if people are informed about the elections. So that's one criterion. Number 4 out of 12, I'll try to go quicker, is the register of voters. In Bulgaria we don't have active register of voters. We have over 1 million dead people who are proven dead, they're buried or cremated. Like my late grandfather, he's still in the electoral votes. And I know for many grandfathers who even voted after they passed away. And this is happening, it's possible in Bulgaria, and there are many cases, because of the lack of active registration for voters. So you're just there because one day you got an ID, Bulgarian ID, but even after you died, no one writes you off, and someone can vote with your ID, or I'm not going there because I'm just presenting the general topic. I have more interesting things to tell you, so let's go quickly. Number 5 is registration of parties, which is also very problematic in many countries. This is very discriminatory thing. Parties and candidates, individual candidates and coalitions, the way they're registered in Bulgaria is very controversial. There are different measurements for parties, different for single candidates. The number of votes, of signatures you need to collect, the time frame given is very complicated. Say for just an example, for a single candidate, you have to collect 2,500 signatures for these European elections to go there, which is quite a lot. In many countries it's much less. Anyway, this is about what we observe is the criteria. What do you need in order to run for elections? Is it easy? Is it accessible? And then the 6th is the campaign. And this is very interesting. In Bulgaria, the campaign is just speaking with someone. To me, it looks like pornography. It's it's really presenting something that everyone knows is happening somewhere, but you don't want to see. It's ugly. During campaign, it's more like a compromise in Bulgaria. We don't have discussion of ideas, of politics, but we have discussion of, we have the clash between images, between a person, like Sergei Stanishev or Boyko Borisov or some other people. They don't have policies. They're not champions of the people. They don't present themselves a strong policy, but they present little cases. Say for the case of the nuclear power, the one says this, the one says the other, the opposite. So to me as a political analyzer, this seems like they're fighting for foreign financial interests more than for policies. And this is very obvious even for a person who is not a political analyzer. So it's yeah, the political campaigns in Bulgaria, they're not really concerned with informing people about long-term policies. What are we going to do? We're going to do this today, we're going to build a dam, and in 10 years we're going to have a lot of water, we're going to have agricultural plants. No, today everything is done day by day. We're going to build a highway, but then we're going to have a huge traffic jam in Burgas because the highway ends up on a traffic light. Yes. So it's the policy we're speaking about. We have the lack of discussion of policies in Bulgaria, but we only speak on small projects. And that's the problem in the campaign, just in the context of Bulgaria, for the Bulgarians to understand. I'm sure all of you know about your countries. And we have the media. I'm not going to say anything about the media. Because I'm never going to shut up, and we don't have time for that. But let's say that media should be plural. When we observe media, it should be plural, it should be impartial, objective, it should be free, moral, accessible, informative. It should not be owned by a single big guy, 33-year-old, very successful. Shut up. So we have complaints and appeals. It's point number 8. And this is very important. In Bulgaria, if you write a complaint and appeal to number, where was the administration? If you write a complaint and appeal to number 3, and I write many of these complaints and appeals as a human rights activist, they simply do not answer to me. They do not reply to me personally. They gather all the complaints and appeals on one point, and they reply generally to this point. They say, yes, we receive many complaints and appeals about fake ballots, but they're insignificant, they're only 500,000. So we're a huge country, it doesn't matter, elections are free and fair. So, the king is dead, long live the king. Elections are fine, we never cancel elections. Sometimes in small sections in certain towns we did, but in general, with the huge violations of electoral rights, with people running with boxes, and this was even known in Nicaragua, where I was observing elections, when I told a person in a small village where our car hardly got up there to the top of the mountains, it's 4,200 meters above sea level. My driver didn't want to go there. The village is called, by the way, Rudel. I think Rudel came from there. I'm an anthropologist, I'm too busy to discover, but maybe, I don't know. In the village of Rudel, the person, when he asked me why you're here, I told I'm here to observe the elections. And he asked what country you come from. I said I'm from Bulgaria. He laughed. Because this was 2011, November, and he had internet in this village. And he saw pictures of people running with boxes, with ballot papers, going to their houses because it was a mess. Then they come back in the morning, they lost some of the ballots, they count whatever they had, no one had all the papers. And then the elections were free and fair in the European Union. So this guy looked at me there. I lost all credibility and respect for him. And he told me, look my friend, we know how to make elections, we don't need Bulgarians. Sorry. So, you know. And this is complaint and appeals. They have to be fair, and people should feel that if they feel their right was violated, there is authority. In some countries there is a special court for electoral offenses. So you don't go through the normal, very slow Bulgarian court that will take 10 years. You go to a special electoral tribunal where things are decided only, they're specialists in elections, the judges are trained. Yeah, there are good practices, let's say. And we look for that. And the 9 is human rights. And this is what I usually do. Also, it's one of my topics that I do with my... When you observe elections around the world, you work in teams of 2, and we split whatever we're good in. I'm not good in media. I'm a very biased person when it comes to media. So I take, for example, human rights. We look for journalists. We look for women involvement in many countries. This is a case, like you know, traditional countries, traditional societies, some Islamic countries, but not only. Access to women is not so easy, and it's not that they're not allowed to vote, it's that it's called controlled vote or family vote, when say the oldest person in the family decides for whom the family would vote, and we observe that in Bulgaria. So it's not only the case of buying votes, of someone paying you to buy votes, it's the case of one person deciding for the rest. And this also has to do with information and with the media. If people are well informed, maybe they would stand up and say, no, I'm voting for the Greens. Grandfather, I'm not voting for the Communists this year, for example. Just giving an example.
It was something like a propaganda for the Greens. So.
Yeah, I'm now absolutely openly making political propaganda for the Greens.
I'm joking.
No, but I'm not. But I'm not. But I'm not. So yes,
because
vote for the Greens.
I support the Greens.
Me too, and I believe it's a very good way for a person to express his own. I'm not.
It's on film, you know.
Yes. Vote green. So, and then we have the civil society.
The so-called.
I think we're all here, so we're not telling you much about the civil society. But let's say not in many countries this is not very developed. And in Bulgaria some say the civil society is very strong and some say it's not. In my opinion, the civil society in Bulgaria is very strong. And it's not organized, but it's strong and people have their opinions. So I will skip that because we are all here representatives of civil society, or at least we are part of a civil society forum venue. So if you don't know about civil society, again, come back to me and Radi and we will tell you how it works and why it's so important and what are the mechanisms to these parties would actually have some chance. So that's for me, and please have questions.
Yes,
Please.
So as a professional in this, what do you think about election qualifications? as far as we spoke about that, there is controlled vote and there is buying of voters and all
Election
these
qualifications.
Yes, qualifications. So who can vote and who cannot?
Everyone should be able to vote.
It is the most democratic instrument for express your political opinion.
Every single person should be able to vote. There are some limitations. For example, people who serve prison sentences for very ugly crimes against with a very high level of public danger. Sometimes they're explicitly denied their right to vote. But for everyone else, you should be able, and this is very important. If you're disabled, you should be able to get in the school. If you're in a hospital, they should come to you.
When you are speaking about so-called sensory voting,
Yeah.
there was an idea last year because the protests in Bulgaria, they have born the idea that we need some kind of how to say
Limitations.
you have to better to explain.
We have now limitations like the age. You have age.
For example,
You need to be 18.
You
about
need
this
some
kind of
educational
qualifications.
level in order to vote.
Just for example,
Yes.
I'm speaking about that. Or maybe you should attend in the country, you should pay your taxes, you should pay for your health insurance and all those things. You have to be the part of the country in order to vote.
You
How do you think about that?
You are.
What
If
do you
you
think
have
about
your ID, you're already part of this country.
Yes, but are you really part? Are you doing anything for this country?
If you don't vote, you're not.
You mean, for example, in Bulgaria, the so-called Roman minority, are they really integrated in our society? Because, as I mentioned 20 minutes before, the right, the responsibility, freedom without responsibility, it's nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Just for
The
example.
right without responsibility is nothing.
Just for example,
Yes.
Why tourists who are in Bulgaria in the day of the elections cannot vote? They
can.
are here.
They can.
Why?
If they register beforehand, they can. They should have planned their
Register
trip.
as whom? As tourists from...
As a person who is going to be here. The way I
I'm
worked
not-
in Denmark.
No, not from European Union, from Kazakhstan, from China, from... They're in
Because-
Bulgaria. They're, in this moment, they're part of our community. Why they cannot vote?
Because this is only this very short given moment. Because they don't have the European ID, because these are the European elections. That's what I mean. There is census, and that's holding a valid European ID and being above the age of 18. Anyone else is able and free to visit the European Union, but of course not to vote. Like if I visit Singapore for 2 hours, I shouldn't vote for Singapore, and if I change then flight to Darwin, I shouldn't vote in Darwin, and if my mission is then in Southeast Asia, I definitely shouldn't vote for these people.
So what is the difference if I'm here, I have my ID, but I'm doing nothing for country, for nothing. I'm not part really of this society. I'm here all the year, I don't get out of the country, but I do nothing. I don't pay my taxes, I don't pay my
You do many
insurance,
things.
I don't go to protest, I do just nothing.
But you do every act that you do is a political act. When you go out in the morning on the street and buy a newspaper, it's a political act. When you choose the brand of yogurt that you buy, it is a political act. The fact that you congratulate or not your neighbors, it's a political act, and you do things in this society. So even if you're not aware of that, you do by your choice of who you speak with or choosing not to speak. This is a political act.
I'm just not speaking, I'm not on my newspapers, maybe sometimes I'm stealing or doing something like that.
This is a political act. This is not nothing.
Am I okay to vote?
Yes.
Can I vote?
Yes,
Is
please.
it the same like a tourist who came from China and who spends a lot of money for buying a dinner in the restaurant, as well paying taxes?
Money does
Gets
not
a
give you
part
right
of
to
all the
vote.
system.
Now I understood the idea. No, we don't care if you spend money or pay your taxes. We care if you have ideas. And if you're a tourist and spend a lot of money, this is great. And I mean, you probably get a lot of products out of that or a lot of food, but this does not give you a right to vote. A right to vote is the fact that you belong to this society, and it's your choice not to go out. I'm a member of my family even if I don't like them and I don't say hi to them. If I haven't ever called them, I'm still a member of my family. I still have my family name, you know. So this is the concept of voting. Yeah, I understand it's not perfect, as I mentioned.
What is to be a part of the society? What you should do to be a part of the society?
I agree with him, because one of the explanations of the protest last year in Bulgaria was that there are so many people without any civic duty for the society, and they vote and they determine the politics and the policies of Bulgaria for the next 4 years.
This is really not understanding the concept of voting. This has to do with juridical system, with many other things in a working society, in a government. Voting is free for everyone.
Really free.
Why don't we allow people from the age of 10 to vote?
Because we believe, as a civilization, you know, European, let's say, that a person on the age of 10 is not
responsible enough.
Is not ready to make informed decision. And I will come back to your question. It has to do with responsibility. If you're stealing, as you said, you want to steal this newspaper, and police catches you and sends you to jail, you're going to serve a sentence. So this gives you the right to vote. You understand? You have the ID, you have your responsibilities, and this gives you the right to vote. The person who will go to jail is the person who can vote. Understand? If I can send you to jail, you should be able to vote. Get the idea? No, but it really works like that.
I think that there is something...
We don't need you to have money. It's okay to live in a cave. Come and vote.
There is some collision between the right to vote as an abstract category. It is the democratic right to vote, but we have always taken into account not only the political context that my colleague mentioned, but also the cultural context. And our cultural context in Bulgaria is absolutely different than the cultural context in France, in Germany, because they have not these problems, for example, with their minority, with all these people that are not integrated in our society as political zone politikon, as Aristotle used to say. It is a big problem.
And that's our fault. The rest of the society.
Yes.
We should fight for better information, understanding, not by the newspapers of a certain guy,
Yes.
and not watch the TV stations of another guy, and do our best to inform the people. Like, I'm a teacher and I try to inform all the students in my class, regardless if they're Roma, not Roma, pay their bills, wear shoes, not wear shoes, say hello, not say hello. 18 or less, because one day they will be 18, even if today they're 16, in 2 years they will be 18. So it's my responsibility as a member of the society to inform them.
But to hear you, I have to be here. If I'm in the cave, I won't hear you. I won't, this information won't get to me. I will be uninformed. So, how can I understand that to get some money and go to vote is wrong? And
who will find in the cave to give them money?
Oh, believe me, if I want to get money to vote, they will find me everywhere.
So you're quite informed. I mean, no one ever offered me money to vote.
Why?
If someone comes to your cave, if someone comes to your cave, offers you money, means that you have some very popular cave with a lot of information. You even have money. I mean, wow. Give me the address of that cave and let's make business.
Maybe
that's the other question. Why won't you vote for money? Maybe
why wouldn't I vote for money?
Yeah, maybe if someone
I would vote for money. No one offers me.
I've got enough money for you.
I never said I'm not going to vote for money.
So what's your price?
Who do you want me to vote for?
Just for whoever I want. What is your price? Or there is no.
It's not the same. Depends on who.
Who is the worst for you? Choose the worst one and vote for him.
I don't want to give them so much attention. I don't say bad words in front of audience, but I think this is very abstract.
There was another question.
If you would vote for someone that you really dislike.
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't vote for him?
I wouldn't. If I really dislike him, I wouldn't vote for him.
Is there any?
Okay.
Yes. There was a
Do you
question.
have as an organization any mechanisms to check the financing of political campaign and causes of, for example, private donation?
Yes, this is publicly available information, and they are obliged to publish it.
And second, why don't we vote in the same rules in the different national states?
Different national
It's
systems.
Different nations.
Different
one
national
institution,
systems.
common institution, and we vote
It's what
different in
it's what I said in the beginning, but maybe you came late, so I'll repeat. Because all our societies develop in a different way. For example, in Switzerland, there are 3 official languages. Different political and historical events created and shaped our nations and societies. So it is absolutely impossible for the same rules to apply everywhere. Trust me.
It is the
I've been in many countries.
It was a Habermas idea, the so-called European
Yeah.
constitutionalism.
I agree for the national election, but Europe is a common project for every nation.
Yes, but it doesn't mean that we
European
have to do
Parliament.
everything on the same way. It's
But-
a part also
but,
of the culture.
European elections are very much standardized. We do have the same rules for the European elections.
But the culture has a very great impact on the manner we do it.
Very small
This-
details are actually different. For the European elections, it's all the same for
But
every
the
country.
culture is something that we cannot neglect.
We were only,
because-
we were only able to choose, do you want to vote between the 22nd and the 25th? That's about the choice we have. And we also have like little, only technical things. The philosophy for the European elections is the same for every member state.
But these little technical things sometimes may change.
Of course, and the weather also. If it's raining, probably less people are likely to go, or if, like in Bulgaria, they open a little earlier the fishing and the hunting season, maybe a lot of people would prefer to go fishing and hunting for these particular elections. And this is a political act, and it's done on purpose. But yes, these things influence, and it's up to you to be well informed and to choose, do I want to go and fish, or I want to decide my future? And if you're well informed about the consequences and the power of your vote, I think you'll make the right choice.
maybe
But I like fishing
if
too.
you live in a cave, fishing is better.
Exactly. It's up to you to decide, and I really don't believe that people who have no opinion and live in a cave, they really have anything to do with politics and voting. And this is my personal opinion. But I also strongly disagree about the idea of census of who should vote. If you have responsibilities, and if you run over with your car a person and send you to jail, then you should be able also to vote. I mean, if for one thing we consider you an adult, and we have strong measurements against you, you should also have the freedoms. And if you're not paying your taxes, or you're illiterate, it's a problem of the educational system, of the juridical system, of the police. It's nothing to do with voting. Voting is to everyone. Every single person should be able to vote.
One of the biggest mafia boss in the United States get to the prison because of the taxes. So maybe taxes are as much important as not killing, not stealing, and all
Everything
those
is
things.
important.
It's your participation.
I agree.
You said that it's a problem of the educational system, but don't you think that
Some problems that I mentioned.
yeah, some of the problems. So
The illiteracy is a problem of the educational system.
exactly. Don't you think that this could be also seen as a political act in order to be easier to how to say it?
To manipulate.
To manipulate the
manipulate,
illiterate
yes.
part of the population?
Come and write down your name. You're good for observing elections.